Hello dear fans. Significance of Darwin's theory for humanity. The position of Darwin's theory in the modern world can be called paradoxical. It is difficult to find another scientific theory that practically all people far from science would know about. At the same time, no theory has overgrown with so many delusions that exist in everyday consciousness. At the turn of the XXXXI centuries, monkey trials resurrected a paradoxical situation when a scientific theory is trying to refute not in the course of a discussion between scientists, but in court proceedings. Of course, it is impossible to abolish the scientific theory in court. The plaintiffs only demanded a ban on teaching Darwin's theory in schools, or at least acquaintance of students with alternative theories. Obviously, these people did not understand or did not want to understand that there are no alternative theories of the origin of species. Currently, we can talk about the synthetic theory of evolution, the neutral theory of molecular evolution and other evolutionary theories. They differ in their views on the genetic and molecular biological mechanisms of evolution. Scientists argue about the evolutionary biographies of certain species, including humans, but all theories agree on one thing. Some biological species, more complex, are descendants of others simpler. This statement is the essence of evolutionary theory, and there are no other views on the origin of species in modern science. Darwin's predecessors. Contrary to popular misconception, Charles Darwin was not the originator of the very idea of biological evolution. Similar ideas can be found in the ancient Greek philosopher Anaximander, medieval philosopher Albert the Great, modern thinkers F. Bacon, R. Hooke, G. Leibniz, K. Linnaeus. The emergence of such an idea and its triumph in the science of modern times was natural. Rapidly developing science, according to P. Laplace, did not need a hypothesis of God, respectively. Scientists were no longer satisfied with the idea of a one-time creation of living nature in such a form as it exists here and now. Only one thing could be opposed to this: the emergence of primitive life and its gradual development to complex forms. Scientists were faced with the question of the mechanisms and driving forces of this process. One of the attempts was the theory of the French scientist J.B. Lamarck. This researcher believed that the differences between living things are due to the fact that these creatures lived in different conditions and were forced to train different organs. For example, giraffes had to train their necks, reaching for tree leaves, so each new generation was born with longer necks, and moles, living underground, did not have the opportunity to train their eyes, which led to their decrease and deterioration of vision. The inconsistency of this theory eventually became clear to everyone. She did not explain the origin of traits that cannot be trained, for example, camouflage coloring, and experiments did not confirm it. Laboratory mice were not born with shorter tails, because scientists chopped off the tails of their ancestors. Thus, this attempt to create a coherent, self-contained and fruitful theory of evolution has failed. Darwin and evolution. Charles Darwin's merit is that he not only declared the idea of evolutionary development, but also explained how and why it happened. In its most general form, Darwin's theory looks like this: from time to time, random changes occur, as a result of which organisms are born that have characteristics that are not present in parental organisms. Depending on the conditions in which these animals and plants live, these changes can be beneficial or harmful. For example, a thick coat at the equator will be the enemy of the animal, and in the far north, different. Harmful changes either make the body completely unviable, or make survival difficult, or reduce its chances of leaving offspring. On the other hand, beneficial changes increase the chances of both survival and reproduction. The offspring inherits new traits, they are consolidated. This mechanism is called natural selection. Quite a lot of such new signs have been accumulating over millions of years. Ultimately, their quantitative accumulation turns into a qualitative leap. Living beings become so unlike their ancestors that we can talk about a new species. This is what Darwin's evolution looks like. Unfortunately, at present, many people's perception of this theory boils down to the statement "man descended from ape," and it is assumed that specific gorillas or chimpanzees that sit in a cage in a zoo can turn into humans. Needless to say, how far such an idea is from the true theory of Darwin. But on the basis of such distorted ideas, many declare their non-recognition of the idea of evolution. Darwin was haunted by the question of what causes such changes and how they pass to offspring. The answer was found within the framework of a new science, genetics, which studies the mechanisms of heredity and variability of living organisms. Darwin's theory and religion. Most often, the relationship between Darwin's theory and religion is presented as an irreconcilable opposition. Meanwhile, Charles Darwin himself once said that the first link in the chain of evolution is chained to the throne of the Most High. At first, Darwin's theory was indeed received with hostility by believers. In the second half of the 20th century, this rejection led to the emergence of scientific creationism. Creationism can be called scientific with a great deal of convention. Science in constructing theories cannot use unproven statements, and the idea of the existence of God has not been proven by science. Currently, creationism is not losing ground, although teaching it in schools in most countries is prohibited. Yet most Christians hold a reasonable view of Darwin's theory. The Bible claims that God created the world, and evolutionary theory reveals how this happened. It is impossible to directly prove the participation of God in the origin of the world in general and of living beings in particular, since the whole world as a whole is His creation. Many Christian theologians, in particular, J. Hott, believe that Darwin's theory not only does not contradict the Christian doctrine, but also opens up new horizons for him. On the basis of the theory of biological evolution, the theological concept of the evolving universe is being formed. Thanks for watching.